Thank you for coming to our workshop over the 7 tips for making sales at farmers markets. I'm Stephanie LeCue. I am the Rural Venture Catalyst for Grant County. And just a reminder, we will be recording this and posting it to our website and social channels. And just to reiterate, the Oregon Reign's mission is to partner with Oregon communities to catalyze entrepreneurial ecosystems, connect entrepreneurs to resources, including overlooked entrepreneurs, and contribute to the creation of prosperous economies. We are able to do this by our funders, which include 20 cities, 5 counties, 3 foundations, and other private sponsors, including the federal government. And an upcoming workshop this Friday at 9 a.m. We will have Robert Killen from the SBDC talking about cash flow and P&L best practices. The Oregon Reign team, Caroline Cummings is our executive director. She's here. Jennifer Damiami is the director of development and operations, and the 4 venture catalysts are here below. And again, I am the Rural Venture Catalyst for Grant County, but I am also the John Day Farmers Market Manager, where I work with entrepreneurs to help them develop their products and refine their skills in sales and marketing. I am an entrepreneur myself, a small business owner, a maker, a creator, and an artist. So what I'm going to be talking about today are essentially 7 tips that I find help people who are selling at either farmers markets or trade shows or any kind of live sale. So I'm going to be going over different, all of these different tips that I think are important. And we'll cover rules and compliance. I'm going to go over a value proposition a little bit, communication, how to be prepared, and customer discovery with minimum viable product and product development, payment methods with assistance programs, and marketing and design. And I do have a poll that I'm going to have Corey put up there just to kind of get an idea of who's on and what you're doing. So can everyone see this poll? Okay, very good. So did everyone have a chance to fill this out? No, we're still waiting.
And Stephanie, it looks like you just had another person join, so maybe just leave it up for another minute.
Okay, welcome to those who just joined, and if you would be so kind to fill out this poll, it gives me an idea of kind of the demographic I'm talking to.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna move on now. So it does look like some of you currently sell at the farmers market, and baked goods and or processed foods seems to be the majority. So I am going to talk a little bit about rules and compliance, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time getting into the weeds over this. I could probably do an entire workshop series over just the rules that govern farmers markets, from the state to federal to even your local farmers markets. But what I want to talk about is more specifically Oregon Cottage Law, the home baking bill, commercial kitchens, different inspections, what you might expect, the different license types, and then some examples of, I'm going to give my local farmers market rules and governance, and I'm going to give kind of a broad scope of those. So the Oregon home baking bill was established in 2016, and essentially it's an exemption from having to get licensed or certified to sell baked goods directly to the consumer. So it creates an opportunity for small businesses to provide their customers access to fresh baked goods. And you do not have to obtain a food establishment license or undergo an inspection from the Oregon Department of Agriculture. The caveat is you can only sell less than $20,000 annually in your baked goods and or value-added products. And it is a combination of all of those. If you need to find out if you require any kind of licensing or if you sell above and beyond that, it's very easy to contact a local inspector. This is what the page looks like. And on that last slide, there's a link to the home baking bill and how to find an inspector in your area, and those links will be posted in the chat. But this is kind of the landing page. It's what it's going to look like if you do need to find an inspector. The Oregon Cottage Law, or the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law, and I think they actually just changed the name of this too because there's too many farm direct laws. But this one is for specifically value-added products for producer processed. So this really applies to the people who grew it themselves, and it is food. So this is just food related. It has to be low risk items. Things that are low risk would be things that are not, essentially don't run the risk of causing botulism, or all of your meats, cheeses, that's a totally different category. So this is just essentially the value added low risk produce. So it gave ag producers the ability to take some of their surplus produce, turn those things into something else that has a longer shelf life, and still be able to raise capital from that. Again, here is a link to a really, really cool flow chart that I'm going to show on the next slide anyway, about kind of how you can answer that if you fall into that category or not. But essentially, this doesn't cover cheeses or meats or baked goods or grains or any of that. It's just produce, and it has to be acidified. So even tomatoes are super dodgy, and the Cottage Law affects some salsas even, but not all. And so this is going to vary market by market, and depending on who you have to talk to at the state, it will dictate what you can and cannot do. This is a picture of that flow chart. So essentially, if you answer yes to these questions, then you are exempt from having to have that kind of a license. If you answer no, it doesn't mean that you can't sell at a farmer's market. It just means that you have to go through some certification and licensing in order to do that. So commercial kitchens, do you want to get a commercial kitchen? Do you not want to get a commercial kitchen? What does that look like? If you are selling more than $20,000 in value-added products, or if you are selling something that does not meet that exemption, you would need to get a licensed kitchen. And a commercial kitchen is a little different than a licensed domestic kitchen. And again, your food safety specialist would be able to answer those questions as far as what specifically qualifies for the different types of licensing. And here are a couple links to the Oregon Department of Agriculture's licenses and their food safety codes. So the other way that you would have to get a license for most farmers markets are if you are making non-producer acquired products. So that Farm Direct Marketing Bill that I just talked about covers producers. So if you are not raising your own strawberries for strawberry jam, as an example, you would have to get a license. It doesn't mean you can't sell, and some farmers markets may say that you can't anyway because that's their right to do that. But if they do say that you can sell it, you would not be exempt from getting a license if you are purchasing commercially the products that you are turning into value-added products. If you want to know what an inspection looks like, and if you want to know more of what to expect, this is a wonderful document. And the link is right here. It'll be posted in the chat, but it will walk you through kind of what inspectors are looking for, and then again, where an inspector is in your region. I want to briefly touch on what I allow in my market, because it's going to matter when I talk about this later in the presentation, because each market is different. We all have our own rules and guidelines. And this is a very general overview of what I allow at my market. It's anything hand or homemade, hand picked, or homegrown. And certain things that are hand picked, I say that I allow, because wild harvest is one of those things that I allow case by case basis. I need proof of where you've gone to harvest it, because we do not allow you to sell anything that you pick from a U-pick. So if you go to another farm and you're picking their product and then wanting to sell it, we do not allow that, because then now you have become a distributor and you are no longer a processor or a producer. I allow nonprofit fundraising of all kinds, and I allow free product testing, samples, and demonstrations. COVID-19 has changed that a little bit, but if you get creative, you can still make that happen. I do not allow anything commercial. So if you are a distributor for an essential oil company, let's say, I would not allow you to sell their products. If you make your own essential oils, I would allow you to sell your products. I do not allow religious or political nonprofit groups or anything that's controversial, to be honest with you, to market their organization. And this is different from fundraising, because I allow all nonprofits to fundraise. But if there is a controversial issue or a politically charged issue, it's just not the place to market that organization at a farmer's market. So you can sell cookies if you are part of the Democratic Alliance or whatever, but you cannot try and change people's minds. I also do not allow the pre-sale of products that are not yet in production. And I say that because testing a product and trying to use a market for product development is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. I think it's very underutilized, but I do not allow you to sell an idea that has not been in production. So I hope that makes sense. The next thing I want to talk about is your value proposition, the market value proposition, and give you some tools and resources. And before I do that, I think I forgot my second poll. Can we put that second poll up real quick?
There were 2 questions in that one poll.
Oh, did you combine them?
Yeah, I didn't realize there's.
Oh, perfect. Perfect then. Okay, never mind then. We're good.
So it looks like most people said, there's 2 people said baked processed foods, 1 craft and textiles, and then 1 nonprofit.
Okay, so you said 1 nonprofit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. All right, so I want to talk about value proposition. Essentially, your value proposition is when you are creating a product for a customer, you want to kind of narrow down what your #1 pain reliever or gain creator you are addressing for your customer is with your product. And you also want to be able to narrow down what you are helping your customer do with your product. We also call that customer jobs. So a task or a job that your customer has to do in their life that they want to do, where does your product fit into their job? How do you eliminate their need for that job? And how are you creating gain? So how are you addressing the pain that they incur by trying to accomplish that task? And how are you creating gain with your product? And so that's essentially the idea of value proposition. This is a phenomenal tool by Strategizer, and you can go onto their website and you can sign up. It's free. This is a wonderful, they have great templates and resources, but this is what the value proposition canvas looks like on their website. And this pie chart over here on the right, the circle, this is your customer. And it walks you through talking about pains and gains and their jobs. So these are the things that they're trying to accomplish. And in the box to the left, the little package is your product. And so this is what you are doing that's going to answer their questions. You are making something that makes their life better. So a farmer's market value proposition is this. If we have to narrow it down to one statement, this is what our value proposition would be: to provide customers with local, high-quality goods and services at reasonable prices. So as a producer, you are looking at, is a farmer's market right for you? Well, if you want to sell local, high-quality goods and services at reasonable prices, then the answer is yes. That would be a very good place for you to be. Here are some tools. These are the pages, the landing pages for that value proposition canvas, and some other resources that will be later on in the presentation from the same organization, Strategizer. And so these will also be posted in the chat if you would like to view them. So the third strategy I want to talk about is communication. So engaging with customers, storytelling, and listening versus speaking. Before I go into what to say, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how to say it. So how to communicate effectively, especially in person. So farmers markets, you're dealing with in-person live sales. Same thing with trade shows. So communicating effectively is very, very important. So stand if possible, be dynamic, and be a good storyteller. This is where developing the story about your product is important. And if you spend a bit of time doing that before you go into actually selling your product, the better off you will be. Also, make sure that you are not the one talking all the time. If you strategize enough ahead of time, you will know questions that you want the answers to, and you will be able to ask those questions of your customers so they can give you the information that you're wanting without you having to talk the whole time. And it also makes them feel connected and feel like they're sharing in your story and your journey. So once you've engaged in that conversation, this is where good marketing tools come in handy. So when you're thinking about creating your business cards or your flyers or your pamphlets, any kind of marketing products, you might want to think about including some of these items. Key messages that will be communicated to your target audience. Finding out who your target audience is also very, very important. Information about your product and service, of course, and the best ways to communicate with your target market. So if your target market is primarily using social media, you need to know that so then you can adjust your marketing strategy accordingly. Basic information of your team members or yourself, and a short bio, your business objectives, and then a list of goals and objectives that you have set for your company or your business. Okay, I want to talk about customer discovery, minimum viable product, and product development. How to use farmers markets creatively, how to use them to discover your customers, who they are, kind of get that target demographic of who you might be selling to, capturing data, and how to develop your product and redefine your minimum viable product based on some of the information you can get at a farmer's market. Farmers markets are more than just pop-up retail spaces. They are a great avenue for marketing for self-made, self-grown products, or even self-owned intellectual property. Also, fundraising opportunities for really anyone, but especially for nonprofits. And this is the #1 area that I find farmers markets are totally underutilized. So yes, markets are a great place to sell their products, but they're also a great place for your market research because you get real-time validation and immediate feedback. And you can accomplish all of these things simultaneously if you just have the right strategy set in place. So how would you go about testing an idea or a product that you're not sure about? You're not sure if you have a lot of people that really like your cookies. You've got 5 people that really like your cookies. But what if you have a video game that you've created? Well, you can use a farmer's market. At least you can use mine to do that. You can, you can find your customer base. You can do product testing. You can get immediate feedback. And one of the ways you do this, or I think that you should do this, is first of all, you need to preload your customer base. Most of us have a few people that we've said, hey, I make soap. You want to try it? So if you have those people and you already have contacts in your Facebook or any of your social media, email lists, even if you're handwriting note cards and sending them, that's fine because you want to create anticipation about this event that you're going to do. Hey, I'm going to be down at the market this Saturday or the next 2 Saturdays from such and such a time, and I'm going to be giving away, and this is where creating an incentive is really important, because you would be surprised what people will do for a t-shirt that they are never going to wear. They just like that kind of stuff. They love drawings and just free stuff. So I think that a $10 gift card is like the most valuable approach to creating an incentive, especially if it's for a coffee shop or a deli. Food and beverage is pretty generalized. Most people like that stuff, or they know someone who does like it, and so they'll just give it away. But you will be able to get so much more information from people if you just create an incentive. I did this last year. I wanted information. I wanted to poll my entire community. So I went and sat at the fairgrounds and I made a gift basket that looked way more expensive than it was. I think it cost 30 bucks. I had hundreds of people literally fill out information and try and win this gift basket. And I got what I wanted. I wanted information. That's all I wanted. And I got it. But you're also able to fine tune your products based on this feedback that you get. And so when you're thinking about, let's say you want to just find out if someone likes your cookie better than they like Pepperidge Farms, and you want to do some taste testing. You want to have survey cards there in hand, and you want to be able to have them filled out, because another thing that you really want is to develop an email list or a mailing list or some sort of a contact base, because it may create potential future customers down the road. You also want to have a strategy in place if you need to pivot or scrap your product. If you go into customer discovery and product development with the idea that you are not going to change no matter who says anything, you're kind of missing out. So as you go into product development, testing, minimum viable product, how do you capture that data? Well, farmers markets, people tend to have their hands full. So consider pre-making cards that have very simple, direct questions with yes or no answers. And use fun methods of filling those surveys out, whether it's stickers, stamps, marbles, tokens. You can get really creative and not put an extra burden on your customer. You can fill it out for them and just stamp the area yes or no. So if you just have yes or no answers, it's a lot quicker. They don't feel it's so inconvenienced. You need to predetermine also how you want to capture data and build upon that data. And here is a really neat template from Microsoft Office. It's free, and it's just to enter in data from surveys. Again, this link will be in the chat. But you need to think about how you are going to capture that data, because on this mailer or on this survey, you want to be able to get people's contact information. This is how you begin to create your customer base. The next tip I want to go over is different kind of payment options when you are either at a trade show or a farmer's market or live sales. And I also want to cover some of the assistance programs that are available as well. So you need to decide if you're going to accept just cash or if you're going to accept just cards or a combination of both. And then you also need to find out if your product is eligible for any of the assistance programs that are available. So if you are going to be accepting cash, the greatest tip I could give you is make sure you have plenty of change in multiple denominations. It's terrible to not be able to make a $10 sale because you couldn't break a 10, or a 20. So make sure you have plenty of change with you. And then also explore electronic payment options and test them first. If you're going to use Square or Venmo or any of the other electronic payment options out there, they usually offer a free test, so it doesn't cost you any kind of fees. But most of these electronic payment options do have fees. They either affect you or they affect the consumer or a combination of both. And so just make sure that you're aware of all of that before you go into it. Some of the assistance programs that we offer at farmers markets are the Oregon Farm Direct Nutrition Program, SNAP, which is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and then WIC for the Fruit and Veggie Program. We do not offer WIC for any other food items besides just produce. The Farm Direct Nutrition Program, on this little image here, they have vouchers. And this program was created for seniors on fixed incomes, and they can purchase produce, but they can also purchase food-bearing plants. And I believe WIC is the same. They can also purchase food-bearing plants. So if you have tomato plants you want to sell, you could conceivably accept these assistance programs. And some of them have a training that you have to go to. It's like 30 minutes over the phone. And then you get sent in the mail marketing packet where you'll have signs that you can hang up on your booth that say that you accept those different programs. SNAP is a market, it's up to the market to kind of handle SNAP. And so every market's going to be different of how they take the SNAP transactions. Typically what it looks like is if your market is certified to accept SNAP, then you will get a list of what items qualify for SNAP, and the market manager will be giving out tokens. So as a market, we have specific electronics that we run SNAP cards through. So we will run it for a specific dollar amount and then give that dollar amount in tokens. Those tokens go to the customer, who then pays the vendor with the tokens. At the end of the market, the tokens come back to the market manager, and then the vendor gets reimbursed in cash. So it's just kind of a round robin of money cycling. So these different websites are great places to go, but if you contact a market manager who you're thinking about selling at their market, they will also be able to direct you to the right location. Again, here's an additional resource for product development. I'm sorry, this is a little out of order, but this is what it looks like, and I did add those links. This is for you to fill out, not your customer. So as you're doing product development and you want to learn more about what customers are saying about your product, you can just fill these in. And if you go onto the website, you can print off as many as you want and just fill them in as per any kind of feedback you get. So the next thing I want to talk about is marketing and design. So steps to prepare and why branding matters. To prepare to sell at a farmer's market, I never think it's a really wonderful thing to just show up and kind of do a dry run. You can learn a lot by visiting the markets that you want to sell at, and by looking, take a clipboard or however you take notes best, and write down what you see and what you would like to see more of, maybe what's missing, maybe what you could do better, things that you don't like, things that you do like, and then test it at your own space, at your home or wherever. Set up your booth and take at least 10 feet back and see what it looks like. Maybe have a friend or someone come over and give you some feedback. I don't know, this is a really common theory that we hear, but it's pile it high, watch it fly. Some little bit of psychology is if you have a very sparse booth, people are not as apt to shop there because they don't feel that you have enough product to make it worth their time. So there are some creative uses of height leveling and texture and color that make a booth look fuller than it is. So you don't have to necessarily have more product, but you need to set it up in a way that makes it look very full without being busy and overdone. And knowing a little bit about psychology of marketing is also very handy to have ahead of time. So if you know that ahead of time, you will do better. So knowing what your customer is thinking, wanting, or needing is important. So that's where that customer discovery really comes in handy. So if you understand that your customer is wanting fresh tomatoes or fresh peppers or eggs, then you're going to know that that's what you need to start doing. Or it's anything. If you have a product and you know your customer wants it, then make sure that it's front and center. Don't pretend to care. Actually care. Most of us don't like feeling like we're being handled. So it's not hard for many of us to care if we are makers, creators, because we're pretty passionate about what we do. It's just people recognize it, and so it's a good thing to do. Make an excellent first impression. This gal here in the photo looks like she's ready for business. You know, she didn't look like she rolled out of bed and just showed up. She looks very nice. Her products are well labeled. They're visible from a distance, and she's used a great use of color. Also lead with stories, not statistics. There's some studies that have shown that people connect emotionally before they connect logically. So stories are what are going to drive sales in this psychological aspect. If people feel like that they can relate to you and connect to you emotionally, that you're going to have a better potential of selling something to them. And then branding. Is branding necessary for a farmer's market? And the short answer is yes, it is. So how do you stand out above the rest? And do you go simple, high tech, or somewhere in between? And really all of those are fine, depending on what you're trying to do. This is a really, really cool idea of branding and standing out above the crowd. This is actually someone in Eugene, and they used an old truck as a display to put their products on. And definitely they are going to catch the attention of everyone walking by because it's unique and it's neat. And so get creative when you're thinking about how to not do the exact same thing or look like the guy next to you. Get creative. This is a resource. Again, the link will be in the chat. If you've never done a branding pyramid, this is a very, very simple brand equity model template. And it just kind of helps you define your thought process as far as what message you're trying to convey and how to convey it properly. And I had to include this picture because I think it is a brilliant use of product to also utilize color. We know that certain colors create certain feelings. And so red and yellow invokes excitement, and they put that right in the middle, and they use their product to do it. So if you know a little bit about branding, marketing, and a little bit of sales psychology, you can actually use your product to appeal to people. They also have a wonderful use of different levels. If this were all on the same plane, it would not look near as good as it looks being separated into different levels. Cute baskets, whatever, but it's they've really, really done a great job. So the last thing I want to talk about is what to do ahead of time because of COVID-19 and how COVID-19 has changed farmers markets. First of all, the first thing you need to do is contact your market manager to learn of new laws and regulations that affect farmers markets. Make sure you have enough time to acquire necessary PPE, which is personal protective equipment, or other products that might be required now that weren't required before. Be creative in using alternate methods of customer engagement. We are definitely not in the time where we can walk around with trays of free cookie samples. That's not going to happen now, and I don't know if it will again, but we're not there. So get creative. Pre-package free samples if you want to do free samples. It's still okay to do that. We just can't have communal bowls where people are reaching their hands in. Also, here's a link to the Oregon Farmers Market Association market guide update for COVID-19, and this is for the state of Oregon. So across the board, people are feeling differently about interacting in public. Be sensitive to the needs of people. They may have fears of being in close contact. They may be angry, but just be sensitive to the fact that people are going to be experiencing a lot of different emotions. And not all markets are going to do well in this time, but some may do better than we think for many different reasons than we may understand. It's almost impossible for us to project how these individual markets are going to do. We'll be able to have a better idea at the end of the season how they've done, but trying to project that is just, it's really difficult. So from the psychological aspects of people being quarantined to the basic needs of our food supplies getting somewhat disruptive, we may find that markets are busier than we expect. But regardless, COVID-19 has changed the face of our communities. So be prepared for the unexpected, because there's just a lot of unknowns that are coming our way. And I love this quote from Julia Child: "Cooking is like love. It should be entered into with abandon or not at all."